The medical report slipped from Alex Sterling's trembling hands and scattered across the polished marble floor of his penthouse office. The words echoed in his mind like a death sentence. Complete sterility, congenital condition, impossible to father children naturally. His world crumbled in that single moment. 35 years of believing he was whole, complete, capable of creating life, destroyed by black ink on white paper. Alex stared at his reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. At 35, he had built a tech empire worth billions, owned properties across 3 continents, and commanded respect in boardrooms worldwide. But none of that mattered now. The one thing he wanted most, to be a father to continue his legacy, was biologically impossible. His phone buzzed with another call from his wife Sarah. He had been avoiding her for 3 days since receiving the test results. How could he tell the woman who married him partly because she wanted a large family that he could never give her children? How could he explain that every conversation they had about baby names and nursery colors had been built on a lie he did not even know he was telling? The irony was crushing. Sarah had insisted they both get fertility tests after 2 years of trying to conceive. She wanted to know if there was something wrong, some reason they were not successful. Alex had agreed, confident that he was healthy and strong. The tests would show Sarah was the one with problems, and they could fix whatever was wrong. Instead, the results revealed that Alex had been shooting blanks his entire adult life. He picked up the scattered pages with shaking hands. The medical terminology was clear and brutal. Congenital bilateral absence of the vas deferens, no sperm production, 0 chance of natural conception. The condition was genetic, something he was born with, something that made him fundamentally incomplete as a man. Alex walked to his home bar and poured 3 fingers of whiskey, downing it in one burning gulp. The alcohol did nothing to numb the pain eating away at his chest. He had always pictured himself as a father, teaching his son to throw a football, walking his daughter down the aisle at her wedding. Those dreams were dead now, killed by a medical report he never saw coming. His assistant knocked on the office door. "Mr. Sterling, your wife is here. She says it's urgent." Alex's stomach dropped. Sarah must have gotten her own results back. She was probably excited, thinking they were one step closer to solving their fertility issues. He was about to destroy her hopes along with his own. "Send her in," he managed to say, his voice hoarse. Sarah burst through the door, her face glowing with excitement. She was still beautiful at 32, with blonde hair and blue eyes that had captured his attention at a charity gala 5 years ago. She had fallen in love with his ambition and success, while he had fallen in love with her dreams of creating a perfect family together. "Alex, I got my results back." Sarah waved a folder in the air. "I'm completely healthy. Everything is perfect. The doctor says I have excellent fertility indicators." She paused, studying his face. "What's wrong? Did you get your results too?" Alex nodded slowly, unable to find words. "Well, what did they say?" "Are you healthy too?" Sarah's smile began to fade as she read his expression. Alex picked up his medical report and handed it to her without speaking. He watched her face as she read, saw the exact moment her dreams died along with his. Her smile disappeared, replaced by confusion, then understanding, then devastation. "This can't be right," she whispered. "There must be a mistake." "I had them run the tests twice," Alex said quietly. "There's no mistake." Sarah sank into the leather chair across from his desk, the report falling from her numb fingers. "You can't have children. You can never have children." "I'm sorry," Alex said, the words feeling pathetically inadequate. "I had no idea. If I had known before we got married." "But we talked about having kids constantly," Sarah said, her voice rising. "It was one of the first things we discussed when we got serious. You said you wanted a big family." "I did want that, I still want that, I just can't have it." Sarah stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. "There are options: in vitro fertilization with donor sperm, adoption. We can still have the family we planned." Alex shook his head. "Using another man's sperm, raising another man's biological children, that's not the same thing, Sarah, you know it's not." "So what are you saying?" Sarah turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "That our marriage is over because you can't produce sperm." I'm saying I don't know how we move forward from this, Alex admitted. You married me believing I could give you children. I married you believing the same thing. Everything we built our relationship on was a lie. It wasn't a lie, Sarah protested. You didn't know. But now I do know. And now you know. And we have to decide if we can build a life together without the children we both wanted. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city below. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. I don't think I can. I'm sorry, Alex, but I don't think I can live without having children. It's all I've ever wanted. Alex nodded, his heart breaking even as he understood her position completely. I know, I can't ask you to sacrifice that dream for me. So where does that leave us? I think it leaves us getting divorced, Alex said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. Sarah broke down then, sobbing into her hands. Alex wanted to comfort her, but he could not move from behind his desk. He was drowning in his own grief and had nothing left to offer her. I'll have my lawyer draw up papers, he said eventually. You can have whatever you want. The house in Malibu, half of everything. I just want you to be happy. I don't want your money, Alex. I wanted your children. That night, Alex sat alone in his penthouse, surrounded by the trappings of his success, but feeling like a complete failure as a man. The medical report lay on his coffee table, a constant reminder of his inadequacy. He had built an empire, accumulated wealth beyond most people's dreams, but he could not perform the most basic biological function that defined masculinity. He thought about calling his parents, but what would he tell them? That their only son was defective, that the Sterling family name would die with him. His father had built the foundation of their wealth, and Alex had expanded it into a global empire. But none of that mattered if there was no one to pass it on to. The penthouse felt enormous and empty around him. For the first time in years, Alex Sterling, master of the universe, felt completely powerless. He had no idea that across town, 3 small children who shared his DNA were sleeping peacefully in their beds, unaware that their biological father even existed. The next morning brought divorce papers and an empty house. Sarah had packed her things and moved back to her sister's place during the night, leaving only a note saying she needed time to think. Alex knew she would not be coming back. Their marriage was another casualty of his defective biology. Alex threw himself into work, staying at the office until midnight every night, acquiring companies and making deals with ruthless efficiency. But success in business only highlighted his failure as a human being. Every day felt like a reminder that he was incomplete, broken, less than whole. 3 months later, the divorce was final. Sarah had been generous, taking only what she needed to start her new life. She was already dating someone new, a doctor who could give her the family she craved. Alex tried to feel happy for her, but mostly he felt numb. The medical report remained on his desk, a constant reminder of his limitations. Sometimes he would stare at it and wonder what the point of his success was if he had no one to share it with, no legacy to leave behind. He was a dead end, the final chapter of the Sterling family story. But Alex Sterling had no idea that his story was far from over. In fact, the most incredible chapter of his life was about to begin, triggered by a mystery that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself and lead him to a love more powerful than anything he had ever imagined. 6 months after his divorce was finalized, Alex Sterling had settled into a routine of emptiness. Work consumed his days, while sleepless nights were spent staring at the city lights from his penthouse windows. He had thrown himself into expanding his tech empire with brutal efficiency, acquiring 3 companies in 4 months, and launching 2 new products that were already dominating their markets. Success continued to follow him in business, but his personal life remained a wasteland. The package arrived on a Tuesday morning in March, delivered by a courier service Alex did not recognize. His assistant brought it to his office along with the usual stack of contracts and reports that demanded his attention. The package was unremarkable, a plain brown box with no return address, just his name and office address written in careful handwriting. Alex almost set it aside to deal with later, but something about the mystery of it caught his attention. In his world, everything was scheduled, planned, and expected. Anonymous packages were not part of his carefully controlled existence. He opened the box carefully, half expecting some kind of promotional material from a vendor trying to get his attention. Instead, he found something that stopped his heart completely. 3 baby photographs lay nestled in tissue paper. Professional portraits of 3 different infants, maybe 6 months old, each with a small nameplate: Emma, Noah, and Lily. The babies were beautiful, with dark curly hair and bright eyes that seemed to look right through the camera lens. Alex's hands trembled as he picked up the first photo. The baby girl, Emma, had a serious expression and eyes that looked remarkably familiar. He could not place where he had seen those eyes before, but something about her face made his chest tighten with an emotion he could not name. The second photo showed a baby boy, Noah, who was grinning at the camera with pure joy. His smile was infectious, and Alex found himself smiling back at the photograph despite his confusion. There was something about the shape of the boy's face that reminded him of his own baby pictures. The third baby, Lily, was caught mid-laugh in her portrait, her mouth open in obvious delight. She had the same dark curls as her siblings and the same bright, intelligent eyes. Alex set the photos down with shaking hands and looked back into the box. Underneath the tissue paper was a manila envelope sealed with tape. His name was written across the front in the same careful handwriting that had addressed the package. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper that changed Alex Sterling's world forever. It was a DNA paternity test report from a reputable laboratory. The document was clinical and official, with charts and numbers that told an impossible story. According to the test, Alex Sterling was the biological father of the 3 children in the photographs, with a 99.97% certainty. Alex read the report 3 times before his brain could process what he was seeing. The test had been conducted using hair samples from the children and a sample of his DNA obtained from sources unknown. The results were definitive and scientifically impossible. He was sterile. He could not father children. The medical tests had been clear about that. Yet here was scientific proof that he had somehow produced 3 babies. The contradiction made no sense. Alex's first instinct was to call the laboratory that had conducted the test, but the phone number listed on the report was disconnected. He searched for the company online and found nothing. It was as if the laboratory had never existed. His second thought was that this was some kind of elaborate fraud, maybe an attempt to extort money from him. Rich men were often targets of paternity scams. But the DNA test looked legitimate, and the photos of the children stirred something deep in his chest that he could not explain. Alex studied the photographs again, this time looking for resemblances. Emma's serious expression reminded him of his own childhood photos. Noah's smile was similar to his father's. Lily's laugh looked exactly like his sister's baby pictures. The more he looked, the more convinced he became that these children were somehow connected to him. But how was that possible? He called his doctor and demanded another fertility test, wondering if somehow the first results had been wrong. Dr. Martinez agreed to see him that afternoon and ran a comprehensive panel of tests. The results came back the same as before: complete sterility, no sperm production, impossible to father children naturally. "I don't understand what you're looking for, Alex," Dr. Martinez said as they reviewed the results in his office. "These tests are definitive. You cannot produce children through natural means." Alex showed him the DNA report without explaining where it came from. Dr. Martinez studied it carefully, his expression growing more puzzled by the minute. "This appears to be legitimate," the doctor said finally, "but it's impossible given your condition, unless—" he paused, thinking. "Have you ever donated sperm? Had any medical procedures that might have involved collecting genetic material?" "No, nothing like that," Alex said. "I had no idea I was sterile until 6 months ago." "Then I can't explain this report. Either the DNA samples were contaminated, or there's something we don't understand about your case." Dr. Martinez handed the document back to Alex. "My recommendation would be to have the test repeated by a different laboratory using fresh samples." Alex left the doctor's office more confused than ever. He spent the rest of the day researching DNA testing procedures and trying to figure out how someone could have obtained his genetic material without his knowledge. The possibilities were limited and disturbing. That evening he sat in his penthouse study, the 3 baby photos spread across his desk. He had been staring at them for hours, memorizing every detail of the children's faces. If they were his children, where were they now? Who was taking care of them? And how had they been conceived when he was biologically incapable of fathering children? Alex picked up his phone and called his private investigator, a former FBI agent named Robert Chen who had helped him with corporate espionage cases. If anyone could solve this mystery, it was Robert. "I need you to find 3 children," Alex said when Robert answered. "I'll send you their photos and names. I need to know everything: where they live, who their mother is, how they were born." "Are these your kids?" Robert asked. "I don't know, maybe. It's complicated." "Okay, I'll need the photos and any other information you have. How urgent is this?" "Top priority, drop everything else." Alex emailed the photos and the DNA report to Robert, then paced his office waiting for answers. The investigator was efficient and thorough, but Alex knew it would take time to track down the children. Sleep was impossible that night. Alex lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with possibilities. The rational part of his brain insisted this was a scam or a mistake. The emotional part, the part that had been broken by his sterility diagnosis, desperately wanted the children to be real and his. 2 days later, Robert called with preliminary results. "I found them," he said without preamble. "The children are real and they're living in Chicago with their mother. Her name is Zoe Washington, age 28, works as a research scientist at the Midwest Fertility Institute." Alex's heart started pounding. What else? "She's single, never been married." The birth certificates list no father for any of the children. They were born 14 months ago, triplets. She's been raising them alone. "Zoe Washington," Alex repeated, the name stirring a vague memory he could not quite place. "Do I know her?" "I'm still investigating that angle. I'll have a full report for you tomorrow, including her address and work schedule." Alex hung up and immediately searched for Zoe Washington online. Her professional profile at the Fertility Institute was impressive: PhD in biochemistry, specializing in reproductive medicine, published researcher in several scientific journals. Her photo showed a beautiful African-American woman with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. Looking at her picture triggered something in Alex's memory, a fragment of a night he had tried to forget. 3 years ago, just after a particularly brutal business deal, he had gone to a hotel bar to celebrate alone. He remembered talking to a woman, someone smart and funny who had listened to him ramble about his work without being impressed by his wealth. They had spent the evening talking, and then the memory was hazy, clouded by alcohol and time, but Alex was beginning to remember a night with a woman who had made him feel normal instead of like a business icon. A woman who had disappeared the next morning before he woke up, leaving only a note saying she had enjoyed meeting him. Could that woman have been Zoe Washington? And if so, how had she gotten pregnant when he was sterile? Alex booked a flight to Chicago that night. He needed answers, and Zoe Washington was the only person who could provide them. But he had no idea that finding her would lead to the greatest challenge and the greatest love of his life. The Midwest Fertility Institute occupied a modern glass building in downtown Chicago, its sleek design reflecting Alex's own architectural preferences. He had been sitting in his rental car across the street for 2 hours, watching the entrance and trying to work up the courage to go inside. Robert's report lay open on the passenger seat, filled with details about Zoe Washington's life that made her seem both familiar and mysterious. According to the investigation, Zoe lived in a modest apartment complex on the south side of the city with her 3 children. She worked as a senior research scientist at the fertility clinic, specializing in experimental reproductive treatments. Her colleagues described her as brilliant but private, someone who kept her personal life separate from her professional achievements. The report included recent photos of Zoe taken with a telephoto lens as she dropped the children off at daycare. Alex had studied those photos for hours on the plane, trying to reconcile the woman in the images with his fragmented memories of 3 years ago. She looked older now, more serious, but there was something about her posture and the way she smiled at the children that stirred recognition deep in his chest. Alex's phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Target entering building now. Black sedan front entrance. Through his windshield, Alex watched Zoe Washington get out of an older model Honda and walk toward the Institute's main entrance. She was wearing a simple blue dress and carried a professional bag over her shoulder. Even from across the street, he could see the confidence in her stride and the way she held her head high. This was it. After 3 days of traveling and investigating, Alex was about to confront the woman who might hold the key to the most important mystery of his life. His hands were shaking as he got out of the rental car and crossed the street. The Institute's lobby was designed to be welcoming and professional, with soft lighting and comfortable seating areas. A receptionist behind a curved desk looked up as Alex approached, her expression shifting from friendly to impressed as she took in his expensive suit and obvious wealth. "Good morning," Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'd like to speak with Dr. Zoe Washington. I don't have an appointment, but it's regarding her research. I'm Alex Sterling." The receptionist's eyes widened slightly at his name. Even in Chicago, his reputation preceded him. "Let me see if Dr. Washington is available," she said, picking up her phone. Alex waited in the lobby, his heart pounding so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. Through the glass walls, he could see researchers in lab coats moving between different departments. Somewhere in this building was the woman who had somehow given him the children he never thought he could have. "Mr. Sterling," a voice behind him made Alex turn around. Zoe Washington stood 5 feet away, and seeing her up close brought the memories flooding back with crystal clarity. She was exactly as beautiful as he remembered, with smooth dark skin and expressive brown eyes that seemed to see right through him. Her hair was pulled back in a professional style, but he remembered it falling loose around her shoulders that night 3 years ago. She looked composed and professional, but Alex could see tension in the set of her shoulders. "Dr. Washington," Alex said, extending his hand, "thank you for agreeing to see me." Zoe shook his hand briefly, her touch sending a jolt of recognition through Alex's nervous system. "I have to admit, I'm curious about why a tech billionaire wants to discuss fertility research with me. Shall we talk in my office?" Alex followed her through a maze of corridors, to a small but well-organized office overlooking the Chicago River. The walls were covered with diplomas and research awards, evidence of Zoe's impressive career. Family photos sat on her desk, 3 toddlers playing in a park, the same children whose pictures had been anonymously delivered to Alex's office. "Please sit down," Zoe said, settling behind her desk. Her professional demeanor was perfect, but Alex noticed the way her hands fidgeted with a pen. She was nervous, which meant she recognized him too. "Dr. Washington," Alex began, then stopped. The formal approach felt wrong given their history. "Zoe, I think we need to talk about something that happened 3 years ago." Zoe's composed expression faltered for just a moment. "I'm not sure what you mean." "The Marriott downtown, the bar on the 42nd floor. You were there celebrating finishing your PhD thesis, and I was there because I had just closed a deal that I thought would make me rich enough to buy happiness." Alex watched her face carefully. "We talked for hours about everything except what we did for work. You called me Andrew because I never told you my real name." The pen in Zoe's hand stopped moving. She stared at Alex for a long moment, and he could see the exact instant when her professional mask cracked. "Oh God," she whispered, "you're Andrew." "My middle name is Andrew, Alex Andrew Sterling. And you're the woman who disappeared from my hotel room before I woke up, leaving only a note saying you hoped I found what I was looking for." Zoe closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, she looked scared. "Why are you here, Alex? What do you want?" Alex reached into his jacket and pulled out the 3 baby photos, placing them carefully on Zoe's desk. "I received these in the mail, along with a DNA test claiming these children are mine. I need to know if it's true." Zoe stared at the photos, her face going pale. "Where did you get these?" "Someone sent them to me anonymously. The DNA test says I'm their father with 99.97% certainty." Alex leaned forward in his chair. "The problem is I'm sterile. I've been tested twice by different doctors. I cannot produce children naturally. So either the DNA test is wrong or something happened that night that I don't understand." Zoe picked up one of the photos. Emma's serious little face staring back at both of them. Her hands were shaking now. You really don't know. Know what? About the research I was doing, about why I was at that hotel in the first place. Zoe set the photo down and looked directly at Alex. I wasn't just celebrating my PhD. I was celebrating a breakthrough in my research, a treatment that could potentially help men with severe fertility issues. Alex's heart stopped. What kind of treatment? Experimental gene therapy combined with advanced reproductive techniques. We had just proven it could work in laboratory conditions. The treatment could theoretically allow men who were previously sterile to father children. Zoe's voice was barely above a whisper. But it required very specific conditions and timing. Are you saying, Alex could barely form the words, are you saying that somehow that night you treated me? Zoe nodded slowly. It wasn't planned, nothing about that night was planned. But when we were together, I recognized some of the symptoms you mentioned in passing. And I had samples of the experimental treatment with me because I had been working late at the lab. Alex stared at her in disbelief. You used experimental medicine on me without my consent. No, Zoe said quickly. It wasn't like that. You said you had always wanted children but didn't think it would ever happen. You seemed so sad about it. And I was drunk on success and alcohol and the connection I felt with you. She paused, looking down at her hands. I told you what I was working on and you asked if it might help someone like you. You begged me to try it. The memory was coming back to Alex now, hazy but real. He remembered talking about his future, about feeling like something was missing from his life. He remembered Zoe mentioning her research and his desperate hope that maybe, somehow, it could help him. But I'm still sterile, Alex said. My most recent tests confirm it. The treatment doesn't cure sterility, Zoe explained. It's temporary, lasting only a few hours under very specific hormonal conditions. It essentially forces the body to produce viable genetic material for a brief window of time. Alex looked at the photos of the 3 children on Zoe's desk. So they really are mine. Yes, Zoe said simply. Emma, Noah, and Lily are your biological children. The words hit Alex like a physical blow. For months, he had been mourning his inability to father children, accepting that his genetic line would end with him. Now he was being told that not only could he have children, but he already had 3 of them. Why didn't you tell me? Alex asked. When you found out you were pregnant, why didn't you contact me? Because you told me your name was Andrew and you worked in insurance, Zoe said with a sad smile. It took me months to figure out who you really were, and by then the children were born and you were married. I saw the announcement of your wedding in the business section of the newspaper. Alex winced. He had married Sarah 8 months after his night with Zoe, still believing he was sterile and that adoption would be their only path to parenthood. I couldn't disrupt your life, Zoe continued. You had moved on, built a new life with someone else, and I was managing fine on my own. The children are healthy and happy. But someone sent me those photos, Alex said. Someone wanted me to know about them. Zoe frowned. It wasn't me. I would never do that without talking to you first. Then who? I don't know. The only people who know the truth are me, my sister, and... Zoe paused, her expression shifting. Oh no. What? My research partner, Dr. James Mitchell. He was the only other person who knew about the experimental treatment and what happened that night. He's been pressuring me to publish our results, to go public with the breakthrough we achieved. Zoe looked up at Alex with dawning horror. He must have sent you those photos. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Why would he do that? Because our treatment could revolutionize fertility medicine and make us both incredibly wealthy. But I refused to publish without long-term studies and proper clinical trials. If he could prove that the treatment worked by reuniting you with your children, Zoe trailed off. He would have his proof and his payday, Alex finished. Regardless of how it affected you or the children or me. Zoe nodded, looking sick. I'm so sorry, Alex. I never wanted you to find out this way. I never wanted to complicate your life. Alex looked at the photos again, seeing his children's faces with new eyes. They were beautiful and perfect, and they were his. After months of believing he was defective and incomplete, he had discovered that he was a father 3 times over. "Can I meet them?" he asked quietly. Zoe hesitated. "They don't know about you. They're only 14 months old, but they're used to it being just us. I don't want to confuse them or disrupt their routine." "I'm not asking to disrupt anything," Alex said. "I just want to see them. To understand what I've been missing." Zoe studied his face for a long moment as if trying to read his intentions. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, but we do this slowly and carefully. These children are my whole world, Alex. I won't let anything hurt them." "I understand," Alex said, though he was not sure he understood anything anymore. His entire life had been turned upside down in the space of a single conversation. As he left Zoe's office, Alex's mind was spinning with questions and emotions he could not process. He was a father. He had 3 children who shared his DNA and his eyes and his smile. The impossible had somehow become reality. But he also sensed that Dr. James Mitchell's interference had set events in motion that none of them could control. The anonymous package had been meant to manipulate them all, and Alex had a feeling that meeting his children was going to be just the beginning of a much more complicated story. Zoe's apartment complex was nothing like the luxury buildings Alex was accustomed to, but it had a warmth and character that his sterile penthouse lacked. The brick building was old but well-maintained, with small balconies overlooking a tree-lined street. Children's toys were scattered in the small front yard, and Alex could hear the sounds of family life drifting from open windows. He sat in his rental car outside the building for the 3rd time in 2 days, gathering courage. Zoe had agreed to let him meet the children, but only under carefully controlled circumstances. He was to come for dinner on Sunday evening, stay for exactly 2 hours, and be introduced simply as a friend of Mommy's from work. Alex had spent the weekend shopping for appropriate gifts, a task that proved more difficult than negotiating billion-dollar acquisitions. What did 14-month-old children like? The toy store clerk had looked at him with barely concealed amusement as he wandered the aisles like a lost tourist, finally settling on simple wooden blocks and soft stuffed animals that seemed safe and educational. The gifts sat in a bag on his passenger seat, along with a bottle of wine for Zoe and a growing sense of nervousness that threatened to overwhelm him. He had commanded boardrooms full of hostile executives and negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but the prospect of meeting his own children terrified him. Alex checked his watch exactly 6 o'clock, the time Zoe had specified. He grabbed the gifts and walked up the steps to the building's entrance, finding Zoe's apartment number on the directory. His finger hesitated over the buzzer for a moment before he pressed it. "Alex," Zoe's voice came through the intercom, sounding as nervous as he felt. "It's me." The door buzzed open, and Alex climbed 3 flights of stairs to apartment 3B. The hallway smelled like cooking food and cleaning supplies, a combination that somehow felt more like home than his expensive penthouse ever had. Zoe opened the door before he could knock, and Alex's breath caught at the sight of her. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger and more relaxed than she had in her office, and Alex was struck again by how beautiful she was. "Hi," she said softly. "Come in." Alex stepped into the apartment and was immediately struck by how warm and lived-in it felt. The furniture was modest but comfortable, and every surface seemed to hold evidence of the children who lived there: colorful toys, small shoes, board books with chewed corners. The walls were covered with photos of the triplets at various stages of their short lives. "They're in the living room," Zoe said, leading him down a short hallway. "I should warn you, they're in their cranky pre-dinner phase. Don't take it personally if they're not immediately charmed by you." Alex nodded, his heart pounding so hard he was sure Zoe could hear it. As they rounded the corner into the living room, he got his first glimpse of his children in person. The 3 toddlers were scattered around a play area in the center of the room. Emma, who Alex recognized from her serious expression in the photos, was sitting quietly with a picture book, turning pages with careful concentration. Noah was banging 2 plastic cups together with obvious delight, while Lily was crawling toward a basket of toys with determined focus. They were more beautiful in person than in any photograph. Alex could see himself in their faces. Noah had his cleft chin, Emma had his nose, and Lily had the same cowlick that had driven Alex's mother crazy when he was little. But they also clearly carried Zoe's genes with her warm brown skin and bright, intelligent eyes. "Kids," Zoe said gently, "this is Alex. He's a friend of Mommy's." Emma looked up from her book and studied Alex with the same serious expression he had seen in her photograph. Noah continued banging his cups, but Lily abandoned her toys and crawled over to investigate the stranger in their living room. Alex knelt down to Lily's level, his hands shaking slightly. She pulled herself up on his knee and looked at him with curious eyes, then reached out to touch his face with one small hand. "She's not usually this friendly with strangers," Zoe said, sounding surprised. "Hi, Lily," Alex whispered, his voice thick with emotion. His daughter was touching his face and smiling at him like she had been waiting her whole life to meet him. Noah abandoned his cups and crawled over to join his sister, pulling himself up on Alex's other knee. Soon both toddlers were exploring this new person who had entered their world, touching his watch and his tie with fascination. Emma remained more cautious, watching from across the room with those serious eyes. Alex looked at her and smiled, holding out his hand. After a moment of consideration, she stood up and walked over to him, her movements careful and deliberate. "Emma's the thoughtful one," Zoe explained. "She likes to observe before she commits to anything." Emma reached Alex and studied his face intently, as if memorizing every detail. Then she surprised everyone by climbing into his lap along with her siblings, settling against his chest like she belonged there. Alex sat frozen, afraid to move and break the spell. He had 3 children in his arms, his children, and the feeling was unlike anything he had ever experienced. All the wealth and success he had accumulated over the years meant nothing compared to this moment. "They like you," Zoe said softly, and when Alex looked up he saw tears in her eyes. "They're perfect," Alex managed to say around the lump in his throat. "Zoe, they're absolutely perfect." Over dinner, Alex learned more about his children's personalities. Emma was indeed the serious one, preferring books and quiet activities. Noah was the entertainer, always trying to make his sisters laugh. Lily was the adventurer, constantly exploring and getting into things she should not touch. Emma said her first word at 10 months, Zoe told him as they watched the children eat their dinner. It was book, which probably tells you everything you need to know about her personality. What about Noah and Lily? Noah's first word was more, which he uses for everything: more food, more playtime, more attention. And Lily's was no, which she uses constantly. Zoe smiled as Lily demonstrated by pushing away her vegetables and declaring, "No." Alex found himself laughing more than he had in months. The children were endlessly entertaining, and watching Zoe with them showed him a side of her he had not seen in their professional meeting. She was patient and loving, finding creative ways to encourage them to eat their vegetables and managing 3 active toddlers with calm efficiency. "How do you do it?" Alex asked as Zoe wiped Noah's face for the 3rd time, "managing all 3 of them by yourself." "You adapt," Zoe said simply. "The first few months were brutal. I barely slept, and I was still finishing my research fellowship. But my sister helped a lot, and the daycare center near the institute is amazing. We've found our rhythm." Alex felt a stab of guilt. While Zoe had been struggling through those early months alone, he had been living his comfortable life, completely unaware that he was a father. He should have been there to help with night feedings and diaper changes and all the 1,000 small challenges of raising newborns. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. "I'm sorry you had to do all of this alone." Zoe looked at him with surprise. "You didn't know they existed, Alex. You can't apologize for not being somewhere you didn't know you needed to be." "But if I had given you my real name that night, if I hadn't been so secretive about who I was, then maybe things would have been different," Zoe agreed. "But maybe not better. You were married, remember? What would have happened if I had contacted you while you were trying to build a life with your wife?" Alex thought about Sarah and the pain of their divorce. If he had known about the children during his marriage, would it have saved his relationship or destroyed it? Sarah had wanted children desperately, but would she have been able to accept children he had conceived with another woman? "I don't know," he admitted. "Everything is so complicated." Life usually is, Zoe said. But look at them, Alex. Look at how happy and healthy they are. Maybe the timing worked out exactly the way it was supposed to. As if summoned by their mother's words, all three children turned to look at Alex and smile simultaneously. The moment was so perfectly orchestrated that both adults burst into laughter. Okay, that was definitely planned, Alex said, wiping tears from his eyes. After dinner, they moved back to the living room where Alex got to see more of his children's personalities. Emma brought him book after book, climbing into his lap to read each one. Noah performed an elaborate dance that involved spinning in circles until he got dizzy and fell down laughing. Lily appointed herself the official toy presenter, bringing Alex each of her favorite playthings for his inspection and approval. They've never taken to anyone this quickly, Zoe observed, watching as all three children vied for Alex's attention. It usually takes weeks for them to warm up to new people. Maybe they recognize something, Alex suggested, then felt embarrassed by how hopeful he sounded. Maybe they do, Zoe said softly. As the evening wore on, Alex found himself relaxing in a way he had not experienced in years. The constant pressure and stress of his business life seemed to melt away as he focused entirely on his children. When Noah fell asleep in his arms and Emma and Lily curled up against his sides, Alex felt a peace he had never known existed. I should probably get them ready for bed, Zoe said reluctantly as 8 o'clock approached. Of course, Alex said, though he did not want the evening to end. This has been incredible, thank you for letting me meet them. Thank you for being so good with them, Zoe replied. I was worried about how they would react to having a stranger in their space. As Zoe gathered the sleepy children for their bedtime routine, Alex stood in the living room feeling more lost than he had in his entire life. For 2 hours he had experienced what it felt like to be a father, and now he was supposed to walk away and return to his empty penthouse. Alex, Zoe said from the hallway, holding a drowsy Lily. Would you like to help put them to bed? The simple question nearly brought Alex to his knees. Yes, he said, his voice barely audible, I would like that very much. The bedtime routine was a revelation. Alex learned that Emma needed her favorite stuffed elephant to sleep, that Noah required exactly 3 bedtime stories, and that Lily would only settle down if someone rubbed her back in small circles. Watching Zoe navigate these requirements with practiced ease, while including him in the process, felt like being invited into the most sacred part of their lives. When all 3 children were finally asleep in their cribs, Alex and Zoe stood in the hallway listening to the soft sounds of their breathing. They're incredible, Alex whispered. You've done an amazing job with them, Zoe. They make it easy, she replied, most of the time anyway. They returned to the living room, and Alex knew his time was up. He had promised to stay for only 2 hours, and it was past 8:30, but leaving felt impossible now that he knew what he would be returning to. What happens now? He asked as Zoe walked him to the door. I don't know, she admitted. This is all new territory for me too. Can I see them again? Zoe hesitated. Alex, I need you to understand something. These children are my entire world. I've built their whole life around stability and routine. I can't have someone coming in and out of their lives inconsistently. I'm not going anywhere, Alex said firmly. Zoe, finding out about them has changed everything for me. I want to be part of their lives, whatever that looks like. Even though it means sharing them with me, even though you'll never be their primary parent. Alex thought about the evening he had just experienced, about the way Emma had fallen asleep in his arms and how Noah had laughed at his silly faces. Sharing them with you would be a privilege, not a burden. Zoe studied his face for a long moment. Okay, she said finally, we'll figure this out as we go, but slowly, Alex. We do this slowly and carefully. As Alex walked back to his car, he realized that his life had just taken another dramatic turn. He was not just a father. He was falling in love with the idea of being part of this little family that Zoe had created. But he also knew that Dr. Mitchell was still out there somewhere, and that whoever had sent those photos had their own agenda for bringing Alex and Zoe back together. The story was far from over, and Alex had a feeling that the real challenges were just beginning. Dr. James Mitchell's office was exactly what Alex had expected from a man trying to exploit other people's private lives for professional gain. The space was immaculate and expensive, designed to impress rather than comfort. Awards and certificates covered the walls, and Mitchell himself sat behind an oversized desk like a king holding court. Alex had demanded this meeting after spending 3 sleepless nights, thinking about the anonymous package and Zoe's revelation that her research partner was the likely culprit. He had arrived at the Midwest Fertility Institute 30 minutes early, determined to get answers before Mitchell could prepare his lies. "Mr. Sterling," Mitchell said, rising from his chair with a practiced smile. "What an unexpected pleasure. I have to admit, I'm curious about what brings Chicago's newest billionaire to my humble office." Mitchell was in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of confident demeanor that Alex recognized in successful con artists. Everything about him screamed ambition, from his expensive suit to the way he positioned himself to appear taller and more imposing. "Cut the act," Alex said, not bothering to sit down. "You sent me those photos and the DNA test. You wanted me to find out about the children." Mitchell's smile never wavered. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about." Alex pulled out his phone and showed Mitchell a photo he had taken of the anonymous package. "This was delivered to my office 2 weeks ago. Inside were photos of 3 children and a DNA test claiming they're mine. You're the only person besides Zoe who knew about the experimental treatment that made them possible." "Ah," Mitchell said, his expression shifting to one of fake concern. "You've spoken with Dr. Washington about her indiscretion. How did she take the news that her secret was out?" "Why did you do it?" Alex demanded. "What do you gain by disrupting their lives?" Mitchell finally dropped his pretense and leaned back in his chair with a calculating look. "Mr. Sterling, do you have any idea what Dr. Washington's research breakthrough is worth? We're talking about a treatment that could help millions of infertile couples. The patent rights alone would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars." "So this is about money." "This is about scientific progress," Mitchell corrected. "Zoe has been sitting on the most important fertility breakthrough in decades because she's afraid of the ethical implications. But you and those children are living proof that the treatment works. With your cooperation, we could fast-track clinical trials and bring this therapy to the world." Alex felt disgusted. "You used 3 innocent children as pawns in your business plan." "I reunited a father with his children," Mitchell said smoothly. "Surely you're grateful for that. Without my intervention, you never would have known they existed." "Without your intervention, Zoe could have chosen to tell me in her own time and her own way. Instead, you violated her privacy and manipulated all of us." Mitchell stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. "Mr. Sterling, you're a businessman. You understand that sometimes we have to make difficult choices to achieve important goals. This treatment could help thousands of couples who are struggling with infertility. Isn't that worth a little temporary discomfort? Not if it means exploiting my children and the woman who's been raising them alone for over a year." "Ah yes, Dr. Washington," Mitchell said with a knowing smile. "I have to say she's handled single motherhood remarkably well, though I imagine the financial strain has been significant. Research fellowships don't pay very much, and 3 children are expensive." Alex's hands clenched into fists. "What are you implying?" "Simply that a man of your resources could make life much easier for all of them. And in return, perhaps Dr. Washington might be more willing to move forward with publishing our research results." The threat was clear. Mitchell was trying to use Alex's feelings for his children, and possibly for Zoe, to manipulate them both into cooperating with his plans. "You're suggesting I bribe her," Alex said flatly. "I'm suggesting a mutually beneficial arrangement. You get to be part of your children's lives, they get financial security, and the world gets access to groundbreaking medical treatment. Everyone wins." Alex shook his head. "Everyone except Zoe, who loses her right to make her own decisions about her research and her family. Dr. Washington is a brilliant scientist, but she's not a business person," Mitchell said dismissively. "She doesn't understand the larger implications of what we've achieved. With your help, We could make her one of the most celebrated researchers in the field. Or you could destroy her career if she doesn't cooperate. Mitchell's smile turned cold. That would be unfortunate, but the scientific community doesn't look kindly on researchers who withhold important results for personal reasons. It would be particularly damaging if it came out that she had used experimental treatments on a sexual partner without proper consent or documentation. Alex felt ice in his veins. Are you threatening her? I'm simply pointing out the reality of the situation. Dr. Washington needs allies in this field, and I've been a very good friend to her so far. But my patience isn't unlimited. The meeting ended with Alex walking out before he did something that would land him in jail. Mitchell's threats were clear: cooperate with his plans to commercialize the fertility treatment, or he would destroy Zoe's career and reputation. The man was willing to use Alex's children as leverage to get what he wanted. Alex drove straight to Zoe's workplace, his mind racing with anger and protective instincts he had never experienced before. He found her in her laboratory, surrounded by equipment and research data, looking like she belonged in her element. "Alex," she said with surprise when he knocked on her lab door, "what are you doing here?" "We need to talk. Privately." Zoe led him to a small conference room where they could speak without being overheard. Alex told her about his confrontation with Mitchell, watching her face grow pale as he described the man's threats and manipulation. "He actually said he would ruin my career," Zoe asked when Alex finished. "He made it very clear that you need to cooperate with his plans or face professional consequences. Zoe, this man is dangerous. He's willing to use our children to get what he wants." Zoe sat in silence for a long moment, processing what Alex had told her. "I've been worried about something like this," she admitted finally. "James has been pushing harder and harder for me to publish our results. He keeps talking about the commercial potential and how much money we could make." "What exactly did you two discover?" Alex asked. "Help me understand what we're dealing with." Zoe took a deep breath. "The treatment is based on temporary genetic activation using viral vectors and hormone therapy. It can essentially force sterile men to produce viable sperm for a brief window, usually 12 to 24 hours. But it only works under very specific conditions, and we don't know anything about long-term effects." "How brief was our window?" "Based on the timing of when I got pregnant, probably less than 6 hours." "You were incredibly lucky, Alex, or we were incredibly lucky. The treatment shouldn't have worked as well as it did." Alex thought about that night 3 years ago, remembering fragments of conversation and emotion. "You said I begged you to try it on me. Why would I do that if I didn't even know I was sterile?" Zoe looked uncomfortable. "You talked about feeling incomplete, like you were missing something essential that other men had. You said you had always worried that you might not be able to have children someday. When I explained what the treatment was designed to do, you became obsessed with the idea that it might help you. And you agreed to try it. I was drunk and excited about my research breakthrough, and you were so desperate and hopeful. It seemed harmless, either it would work or it wouldn't, and you would never know the difference." Zoe's voice dropped to a whisper. "I never imagined I would actually get pregnant." Alex reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm not blaming you, Zoe. We were both adults making choices in the moment, but now we have to deal with the consequences. What are we going to do about James?" "We're going to stop him," Alex said firmly. "I won't let him use our children as pawns in his business plan. And I won't let him destroy your career because you refuse to be manipulated." "How he has all the power here?" "He's a respected researcher with connections throughout the medical community. I'm just a junior scientist who made a mistake with experimental treatment." Alex squeezed her hand. "You're forgetting who you're talking to. I didn't build a billion-dollar empire by letting people like Mitchell push me around. We're going to fight back, and we're going to win." For the first time since Alex had told her about his meeting with Mitchell, Zoe smiled. "What did you have in mind?" "First, we document everything. I want a record of all your communications with Mitchell, copies of your research data, and proof of his threats. Then we're going to take this to his superiors and show them exactly what kind of man they have working for them." And if that doesn't work? Alex's expression hardened, then we get creative. I have resources Mitchell can't imagine, and I'm not afraid to use them to protect my family. The word slipped out before Alex could stop it, but he realized he meant it. Somewhere in the past 2 weeks, Zoe and the children had become his family in his mind. They were worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth everything he had. Your family? Zoe asked softly. Alex looked into her eyes and saw something that made his heart race. If you'll have me, he said, if you'll let me be part of what you've built with the children. Alex, this isn't a fairy tale. Raising 3 toddlers is exhausting and messy and complicated. It's not the glamorous life you're used to. I don't want glamorous, Alex said. I want real. I want to wake up in the morning knowing I have a reason to get out of bed besides making more money. I want to teach Noah how to throw a ball and read bedtime stories to Emma and watch Lily discover the world. Zoe was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. And what about us? She asked finally. What about the fact that we barely know each other outside of one night 3 years ago? Then we get to know each other, Alex said. We take it slow and see what develops. But Zoe, I need you to know that whatever happens between us, I'm committed to being the best father I can be to those children. Even if it means giving up your bachelor lifestyle and your freedom. Alex thought about his empty penthouse and his lonely success. What freedom? I've been trapped in my own life for years, going through the motions without any real purpose. Finding out about the children didn't take away my freedom, it gave me a reason to use it. Zoe smiled, and for the first time since this whole situation began, Alex felt like they might actually be able to build something beautiful together. But first, they had to deal with Dr. James Mitchell and his threats. The battle for their family's future was just beginning. The playground was busier than Alex had expected for a Wednesday morning, filled with parents and caregivers pushing children on swings and helping them navigate climbing structures. Alex sat on a bench watching Zoe chase after Lily, who had apparently decided that the slide was more fun to climb up than to slide down. This was their 5th meeting in 2 weeks, and Alex was starting to understand the rhythm of his children's lives. Emma preferred quiet activities and would spend 20 minutes examining a single flower with intense concentration. Noah was the social butterfly, trying to make friends with every child and adult in the park. Lily was the adventurer, constantly finding new ways to give her mother heart attacks by climbing on things she should not climb on. Lily, slides are for going down, not up, Zoe called out, her voice mixing exasperation with amusement. Alex stood up to help, but Lily had already figured out her own solution to the problem. She had climbed high enough that going down was now her only option, and she launched herself down the slide with a delighted shriek that made everyone in the playground turn to look. She's going to be an extreme sports athlete, Alex said as Zoe caught their daughter at the bottom of the slide. Don't even joke about that, Zoe replied, but she was smiling. I already have enough gray hairs trying to keep up with her. Alex had been learning a lot about parenting in these past 2 weeks. He had discovered that taking 3 toddlers anywhere required more planning than most military operations. Diaper bags had to be packed with surgical precision, snacks had to be distributed with careful attention to each child's preferences, and meltdowns could happen at any moment for reasons that defied logic. He had also learned that he was completely, hopelessly in love with being a father. Alex, look, Noah called out from the sandbox where he was building an elaborate castle with Emma's help. We made a house. Alex walked over to admire their creation, which looked more like a lumpy hill than a house, but represented serious collaborative effort between his 2 eldest children. That's incredible, Alex said, crouching down to their level. Can you tell me about it? It has rooms, Emma said seriously, pointing to different sections of the sand pile. This is the kitchen, and this is where the people sleep. And this is where the cars go, Noah added, driving a toy truck around the base of their construction. Alex found himself genuinely fascinated by their explanations. Everything was new and magical through their eyes, and spending time with them was teaching him to see the world differently. Simple things like watching clouds or collecting leaves became adventures when experienced through the wonder of toddlers. You're getting good at this, Zoe observed, settling on the ground beside him with Lily in her lap. At what? Being a dad. 2 weeks ago you looked terrified every time one of them cried. Now you're having full conversations about sand architecture. Alex smiled. They're excellent teachers, very patient with slow learners. It was true. The children had accepted him into their lives with an ease that amazed both adults. They had started calling him Alex with the same casual familiarity they used for their favorite babysitter or their daycare teachers. There was no awkwardness or confusion about his role. He was simply another adult who loved them and wanted to spend time with them. "Can we get ice cream?" Noah asked, looking hopefully between Alex and Zoe. "We just had lunch," Zoe pointed out. "But my tummy has a special ice cream compartment," Noah explained with the perfect logic of a toddler. "It's still empty." Alex burst out laughing. "That's the best argument for ice cream I've ever heard." "Don't encourage him," Zoe said, but she was trying not to smile. "He's already too charming for his own good." They compromised by going to a nearby cafe that served fruit smoothies, which the children accepted as an adequate substitute for ice cream. Alex found himself marveling at the way Zoe managed 3 active toddlers in public, keeping them entertained and well-behaved while making it look effortless. "How do you do it?" he asked as they settled at a table with their drinks. "Do what?" "Make it look so easy. Managing all 3 of them, keeping track of their different needs, staying calm when everything gets chaotic." Zoe stirred Emma's smoothie to make sure it was well mixed. "Practice mostly." "And lowered expectations. I used to think I had to be perfect at everything, but parenting teaches you to be happy with good enough." "You're better than good enough," Alex said. "You're amazing with them." "I make plenty of mistakes," Zoe replied. "Last week I put Noah down for his nap in Emma's bed, and it took me 20 minutes to figure out why he was crying. And yesterday I packed Lily's lunch, but forgot to actually put it in her diaper bag." Those sound like normal human mistakes, not parenting failures. Tell that to the perfect mothers at Mommy Group who have color-coded schedules and organic, homemade everything. Alex could hear the insecurity in Zoe's voice, and it made him angry on her behalf. "Zoe, look at them," he said, gesturing to the 3 children who were happily sharing their smoothies and chattering at each other in their own language. "They're healthy and happy and confident. They trust you completely and love you unconditionally." "That doesn't happen by accident." Zoe looked at her children with soft eyes. "They are pretty great, aren't they?" "They're incredible, and so are you." The conversation was interrupted by Lily deciding to demonstrate her new skill of drinking through a straw by blowing bubbles in her smoothie, instead of drinking it. The resulting mess required immediate attention from both adults, but Alex found himself laughing as he helped clean purple smoothie off Lily's face and clothing. "This is your life now," Zoe warned him as she wiped down the table. "Constant mess, interrupted conversations, and very little time for yourself." "I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather be," Alex said honestly. That evening, Alex joined the family for their bedtime routine again. He was getting better at the logistics. He knew that Emma needed her stuffed elephant and her special blanket, that Noah required exactly 3 stories and a glass of water, and that Lily would only settle down if someone sang to her. "What should we sing tonight?" Alex asked as he rocked Lily in the chair beside her crib. "Twinkle Star," Lily said decisively. Alex had never sung lullabies before becoming a father, but he had quickly learned that his daughter had strong opinions about bedtime music. He sang Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in a soft voice while Lily gradually relaxed against his chest. From across the room, he could hear Zoe reading to Emma and Noah, her voice doing different characters for each part of the story. This was the part of the day he looked forward to most, when the chaos settled down and the apartment filled with the quiet sounds of a family preparing for sleep. "Alex," Lily whispered as he finished the song. "Yes, baby. Love you." The words hit Alex like a physical blow. His daughter, his 14-month-old daughter who had only known him for 2 weeks, loved him. The casual way she said it, like it was the most natural thing in the world, made his throat tighten with emotion. "I love you too, Lily," he whispered back, "so much." After all 3 children were asleep, Alex and Zoe sat in the living room with cups of tea, finally able to have an adult conversation without interruption. "She's never said that to anyone besides me and my sister," Zoe said quietly. "What?" "Lily, she's never told anyone else she loves them. She's usually shy with new people." Alex felt his heart swell with pride and amazement. "Really? Really? All three of them have accepted you so completely. It's like they were waiting for you to show up." "Maybe they were," Alex said. "Maybe some part of them always knew I existed." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Alex was processing the reality that he was falling in love not just with his children, but with this entire life that Zoe had created. The apartment that had seemed small and modest on his first visit now felt warm and full of love. The chaos that had initially overwhelmed him now seemed like the natural rhythm of a happy family. "Alex," Zoe said eventually, "I need to ask you something." "Anything." "What happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that this isn't a part-time hobby you can walk away from when it gets difficult?" Alex looked at her seriously. "Zoe, I've been thinking about that question every day since I met them. And the answer is that I'm not going anywhere. This isn't novelty for me, it's the life I never knew I wanted. Even when Noah has a tantrum in the grocery store, and everyone stares at you like you're a terrible parent. Even when Emma gets sick and throws up on your expensive shirts. Even when Lily decides to redecorate the apartment with permanent markers." "Especially then," Alex said. "Zoe, I spent 35 years thinking I was successful because I had money and power. But I was just going through the motions of living. These past 2 weeks with you and the children have been more real and meaningful than anything I've experienced in my entire adult life." Zoe studied his face. "You really mean that?" "I really mean that. And I know you're scared to trust me completely, given how we met and how complicated everything has been. But I need you to know that I'm committed to this family for the long haul." "What about your business? Your lifestyle, all the things that seemed important to you before?" Alex thought about his empty penthouse and his demanding schedule. "The business will adapt. Money is just a tool, it's only valuable if it helps you build something meaningful. And as for my lifestyle," he smiled, "I'd rather have smoothie stains on my shirts and toys all over my living room than another night alone in that sterile penthouse." Zoe was quiet for a long moment. "I never expected this," she said finally. "Expected what?" "To feel like we could actually be a real family. When you first showed up at my office, I thought you were going to complicate everything and disrupt the life I'd built for the children. Instead, you've made it better." Alex reached over and took her hand. "You've made my life better too, all of you." As he drove home that night, Alex realized that the war with Dr. Mitchell was becoming secondary to the love he was building with his family. Mitchell could threaten and manipulate all he wanted, but he could not destroy what Alex and Zoe were creating together. The children were his, and he was theirs, and nothing else mattered as much as protecting that bond. The power outage hit Chicago on a Friday evening in early October, plunging the entire neighborhood into darkness just as Alex was helping with dinner preparations. The children reacted to the sudden blackness with a mixture of excitement and concern. Noah thought it was a game, Emma wanted to know where the lights went, and Lily started crying because she could not see her toys. "It's okay, babies," Zoe said calmly, feeling around in the kitchen drawer for a flashlight. "The lights will come back on soon." Alex used his phone's flashlight to help her search, and together they managed to locate several flashlights and a collection of emergency candles. Within minutes the apartment was glowing with soft candlelight, transforming the familiar space into something magical. "It's like camping," Noah declared, his earlier concern forgotten. "Can we make s'mores?" Emma asked hopefully. "We don't have a campfire, sweetheart," Zoe explained, "but we can pretend." What followed was one of the most memorable evenings Alex had experienced since becoming part of the family. Without television or electronic distractions, they created their own entertainment. Alex found himself telling stories he had not thought about in years, tales his grandmother had told him about growing up on a farm, adventures involving talking animals and magical forests. The children were captivated by his storytelling, and Alex discovered he had a talent for different voices and dramatic gestures. Even Emma, who was usually reserved with new experiences, was giggling at his impression of a grumpy old bear. "Tell the one about the dragon again," Lily demanded when Alex finished his third story. "I think it's time for dinner," Zoe said, though she was smiling at how engaged the children were with Alex's performances. Dinner by candlelight turned into an adventure of its own. Simple sandwiches became explorer food that they had to eat carefully by flashlight. The children found the whole experience delightfully mysterious, whispering to each other and making shadow puppets on the walls. "This is better than television," Noah announced, his mouth full of peanut butter and jelly. "Don't give them ideas," Zoe warned Alex quietly. "I'll never get them to watch cartoons again if they think candlelight dinner is more fun." After dinner, they moved to the living room where Alex continued his storytelling, while Zoe put together a blanket fort using chairs and couch cushions. The children helped with the construction, offering engineering advice that was enthusiastic if not always practical. "We need more pillows," Emma said seriously, dragging her favorite cushion over to add to the structure. "And snacks," Noah added. "All good forts have snacks." "And teddy bears for protection," Lily contributed, clutching her stuffed rabbit. The fort construction became a family project, with everyone contributing ideas and materials. Alex found himself crawling around on the floor, adjusting blankets and testing the structural integrity of their creation. It was the furthest thing from his usual executive lifestyle, and he had never been happier. "Perfect," Zoe declared when they had finished. "Now we have our own indoor camping site." They all squeezed into the blanket fort together, the space just big enough for 2 adults and 3 toddlers if everyone stayed very close. The candlelight filtering through the blankets created a warm, cozy atmosphere that felt separate from the rest of the world. "Tell us about when you were little," Emma requested, settling against Alex's side. Alex found himself sharing memories he had not thought about in years. He told them about building tree houses with his sister, about catching fireflies in mason jars, about the time he had tried to teach his dog to fetch and ended up chasing the dog around the yard instead. "Did you have kids when you were little?" Noah asked with the perfect logic of a toddler. "No, buddy, kids can't have kids, you have to grow up first." "When did you decide you wanted kids?" Emma asked. The question caught Alex off guard. How could he explain that he had wanted children his whole life, but thought it was impossible? How could he tell them that finding out about their existence had been the best and most shocking moment of his adult life? "I always wanted kids," he said finally. "I just had to wait a really long time to find you." "Were you lonely without us?" Lily asked, her small hand patting his cheek. "Very lonely," Alex admitted. "But I'm not lonely anymore." From across the small space, Alex caught Zoe watching him with an expression he could not quite read. The candlelight softened her features and made her eyes seem to glow. She looked beautiful and peaceful, surrounded by their children in their makeshift fort. "What about you, Mama?" Noah asked, turning his attention to Zoe. "Were you lonely before we were born?" "Sometimes," Zoe said honestly. "But then you 3 came along and made everything better." "And now Alex is here too," Emma observed, "so nobody has to be lonely." The simple wisdom of his daughter's statement hit Alex right in the chest. Emma was right, they had all found each other, and none of them had to be lonely anymore. As the evening progressed, the children gradually grew sleepy in the warm confines of their blanket fort. Noah was the first to drift off, curled up against Alex's chest. Emma followed soon after, her head on Zoe's shoulder. Lily fought sleep the longest, determined not to miss any of the adventure, but eventually she too succumbed to the comfort of being surrounded by her family. Alex and Zoe found themselves alone together in the candle-lit fort, 3 sleeping children between them, speaking in whispers to avoid waking anyone. "This is nice," Zoe said softly. "It's perfect," Alex replied. "I never knew that a power outage could be such a gift." The kids will remember this night forever, their first indoor camping adventure. Alex looked down at Noah, who was sleeping peacefully against his chest, then at Emma and Lily curled up against Zoe. "I'll remember it forever too." "Alex," Zoe said quietly, "can I ask you something personal?" Of course. When you were married to Sarah, did you ever feel like this? Like you were exactly where you belonged? Alex thought about his marriage, about the elegant dinner parties and expensive vacations that had felt hollow even at the time. No, he said honestly. Sarah and I were compatible on paper, but we never had this kind of connection. Everything felt forced, like we were both trying to fit into roles that didn't quite work. Do you miss her? I miss the idea of what I thought our marriage could become, Alex said. But I don't miss the reality of it. We were both trying to create something that wasn't really there. Zoe was quiet for a moment. I've never been married, she said eventually. I've had relationships but nothing serious. I always threw myself into my work instead. Any regrets about that? Not anymore. If I had gotten married earlier, I might not have been available that night we met. And then these three wouldn't exist. She gestured to the sleeping children. Everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to. Alex reached across the small space and took her hand. I'm starting to believe that too. Are you? Zoe looked at him with surprise. Even though finding out about them turned your whole life upside down. Especially because of that. Zoe, my life before meeting you and the children was successful but empty. I was going through the motions of living without really understanding what I was living for. And now you do. Alex looked around at their improvised family campsite, at the children sleeping peacefully in their blanket fort, at the woman who had given him everything he never knew he needed. Now I do, he said. I'm living for this, for them, for us. Zoe squeezed his hand. Us. If you want there to be an us, Alex said. I know we're taking everything slowly, and I know you need to be careful because of the children. But Zoe, what I feel for you goes beyond just being co-parents. What do you feel for me? Alex took a deep breath. I'm falling in love with you, with your intelligence and your strength and the way you've built this beautiful life for our children. I'm falling in love with the woman who took a chance on an experimental treatment because she wanted to help someone she barely knew. I'm falling in love with watching you be a mother and wondering what it would be like to build a real family together. Zoe was quiet for so long that Alex began to worry he had said too much too soon. But when she finally spoke, her voice was soft and full of emotion. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. With the way you've thrown yourself into being a father, with how patient you are with the children, with how you've made us feel like a complete family instead of just me trying to do everything alone. Alex felt his heart race. Really? Really? But Alex, this is scary for me. I've been independent for so long and the children have been my whole world. Letting someone else into that world, trusting someone else with their happiness. I know it's scary, Alex said. It's scary for me too. I've never been a father before, never been part of a real family, but I want to learn with you. I want us to figure it out together. Before Zoe could respond, Lily stirred in her sleep and mumbled, More stories, Alex. Both adults smiled at their daughter's unconscious request. I think she's having dreams about your storytelling, Zoe whispered. I should probably work on my material, Alex replied. I'm running out of childhood memories to turn into adventures. You could make up new ones. The children love fantasy stories. What kind of fantasy stories? Princess adventures, talking animals, magical kingdoms. Use your imagination. Alex grinned. I've spent so many years focused on reality and business deals that I forgot how to use my imagination. But being with the children is bringing it back. Being with you is bringing back parts of myself I forgot too, Zoe admitted. Like the part that believes in fairy tale endings. Is that what this is? A fairy tale? Zoe looked around at their candle-lit fort, at their three sleeping children, at the man who had appeared in their lives and made everything better. Maybe it is, she said. But if it is, it's the best kind of fairy tale, the kind that's real. The power came back on around midnight, flooding the apartment with electric light and the hum of appliances returning to life. The children barely stirred, too deeply asleep to notice the change. But Alex and Zoe were still awake, still holding hands across their sleeping family. Should we move them to their beds? Zoe asked quietly. In a few minutes, Alex said. I don't want this to end yet. They stayed in their blanket fort until nearly 1 in the morning. talking quietly about their hopes and fears, about the future they were building together. When they finally carried the children to their beds, it felt like the end of a perfect dream. But as Alex drove home that night, he realized it was not the end of anything. It was the beginning of the real fairy tale, the one where the prince and princess had already found their happily ever after. They just had not realized it yet. The power outage had given them a gift more valuable than electricity. It had given them the space and time to admit they were falling in love. Alex's sister Jennifer had never been subtle about her opinions, so he was not surprised when she cornered him at their parents' anniversary party with a drink in one hand and a disapproving expression on her face. "So," Jennifer said without preamble, "are you going to tell me what's really going on with this sudden family you've acquired?" Alex had been dreading this conversation since he had told his family about the children 2 weeks earlier. He had kept the explanation simple. He had discovered he was a father to triplets, and he was getting to know them and their mother. He had left out the details about the experimental treatment, his sterility, and Dr. Mitchell's threats. "I told you what's going on," Alex said calmly. "I have 3 children and I'm building a relationship with them." "Children that you somehow fathered despite being told you're sterile," Jennifer said pointedly. "Children whose mother you conveniently had a one-night stand with 3 years ago. Children who live in Chicago while you live in New York. Alex, this whole story sounds like a setup." Alex's jaw tightened. "A setup for what?" "Money, obviously. This woman probably researched you, figured out you were wealthy and desperate for children, and created this elaborate scheme to get you to support her and her kids." "Zoe doesn't want my money, Jennifer." "She's never asked for anything." "Yet," Jennifer said, "but she will, they always do." "Alex, you're being naive about this. Rich men are targets for paternity scams all the time." "I've had DNA tests done," Alex said firmly. "The children are mine." "DNA tests can be faked. Lab results can be bought. Alex, you're so desperate to be a father that you're not thinking clearly about this situation." Alex felt anger rising in his chest. "Those children are not a situation, Jennifer. They're my kids and I love them." "You've known them for a month. You can't love children you've known for a month." "Watch me," Alex said coldly. Their conversation was interrupted by their mother approaching with a concerned expression. Patricia Sterling was an elegant woman in her 60s who had perfected the art of managing family drama with gracious firmness. "What are you two arguing about now?" she asked with the tone of someone who had been breaking up fights between her children for 40 years. "Alex's mysterious new family," Jennifer said. "I'm trying to talk some sense into him before he gets taken advantage of." "Jennifer, that's enough," their mother said sharply. "Alex is a grown man capable of making his own decisions." "But Mom, this whole thing sounds suspicious." 3 children he never knew about, a woman who claims they had a one-night stand 3 years ago. It's like something out of a soap opera. Patricia Sterling looked at her son with the penetrating gaze that had terrified him as a child. "Alex, are you certain these children are yours?" "Completely certain," Alex said. "And Mom, they're incredible. Emma is brilliant and serious, Noah is charming and funny, and Lily is brave and adventurous." "You would love them." "Then I'd like to meet them," his mother said simply. "If they're my grandchildren, they're part of this family." Jennifer looked frustrated. "You're both being ridiculous." "Alex, what happens when this woman decides she wants half your fortune? What happens when she takes the children and disappears? You have no legal rights to them." "I have the right that comes from being their father," Alex said. "And Zoe would never take them away from me." "How do you know? You barely know her." "I know her well enough to trust her with the most important thing in my life, my children." "Alex," his father's voice interrupted from behind them. Robert Sterling was a distinguished man who had built the foundation of the family wealth through careful investments and conservative business practices. He approached the argument with the same measured consideration he brought to all decisions. "Dad," Alex said, grateful for the interruption. "Your mother told me about the children," Robert said. "I have to admit, I share some of Jennifer's concerns about the timing and circumstances." Alex's heart sank. He had hoped his father would be more supportive. However, Robert continued, "I also trust your judgment. You've proven yourself to be an excellent businessman and a thoughtful decision-maker. If you believe these children are yours and that their mother is trustworthy, then I'm willing to accept that." "Thank you," Alex said, relief flooding through him. "But I do think Jennifer raises a valid point about legal protection," his father continued. "You should consider establishing formal custody arrangements, and possibly a trust fund for the children's education and future needs." "I've thought about that," Alex admitted. "But I don't want to make Zoe feel like I'm trying to take control or buy my way into their lives." "You're not trying to take control," his mother said. "You're trying to be a responsible father." "There's a difference." The conversation was interrupted by Alex's phone buzzing with a text message. It was from Zoe. "Emergency at the Institute. Can you pick up the kids from daycare?" "I'll explain later." Alex's protective instincts immediately kicked into high gear. "I have to go," he said, already heading toward the exit. "There's a problem in Chicago." "Alex, wait," Jennifer called after him. "You can't just run off every time this woman snaps her fingers." But Alex was already gone, his mind racing with possibilities about what kind of emergency could have happened at the Fertility Institute. Doctor. Mitchell had been quiet for the past few weeks, but Alex had not trusted the silence. Men like Mitchell did not give up easily when they wanted something. The flight to Chicago felt endless. Alex tried calling Zoe multiple times, but her phone went straight to voicemail. He managed to reach the daycare center and arranged for them to keep the children until he could get there, but the lack of information was driving him crazy. When he finally arrived at the daycare center, the children were playing happily in the late pickup room, apparently unaware that anything was wrong. "Alex," Noah called out when he saw him, running over for a hug. "Mama said you were coming to get us." "That's right, buddy," Alex said, scooping up his son while Emma and Lily came over to greet him. "We're going to have an adventure." The daycare staff assured him that Zoe had called to authorize the pickup, and that the children had been well-behaved all day. Alex loaded them into the car seats he now kept in his rental car and drove to Zoe's apartment, his mind still racing with worry about what had happened at the Institute. Zoe was waiting for them in the apartment, pacing back and forth in the living room with obvious agitation. She looked tired and stressed, and Alex immediately went to her while the children ran off to play with their toys. "What happened?" he asked, taking her hands in his. "Mitchell happened," Zoe said, her voice shaking with anger. "He called an emergency meeting with the Institute's board of directors this afternoon. He told them about our experimental treatment and claimed I had been conducting unauthorized human trials." Alex felt ice in his veins. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That the treatment was used once in an emergency situation with full disclosure and consent from the subject. But Alex, they're launching a formal investigation. They've suspended me pending the outcome." "Suspended you?" "With pay for now. But if they find evidence of unauthorized experimentation, I could lose my license to practice. My entire career could be over." Alex pulled Zoe into his arms, feeling her trembling against his chest. "We're going to fight this," he said firmly. "Mitchell is not going to destroy your career because you won't play along with his schemes. How? He has the board's ear, and I'm just a junior researcher with a suspicious story about experimental treatments and accidental pregnancy." "You're not just anything," Alex said. "You're a brilliant scientist who made a breakthrough that could help millions of people, and you have me on your side now." Zoe pulled back to look at him. "Alex, this could get messy. If this goes public, your name could be dragged into it. Your reputation, your business, everything could be affected." "I don't care about my reputation or my business if it means protecting you and the children." "But you should care. This is your life we're talking about." Alex cupped her face in his hands. "You and the children are my life now, everything else is just details." From the living room, they could hear Noah attempting to teach his sisters a song he had learned at daycare, his voice carrying clearly through the apartment. The sound of their children's laughter was a reminder of what they were fighting for. "What do we do now?" Zoe asked. "Now we document everything, every conversation you've had with Mitchell, every email, every threat." We build a case that shows exactly what kind of man he is, and what his real motivations are. And if that's not enough, Alex's expression hardened, then we get creative. I didn't build a $1 billion company by letting people like Mitchell intimidate me. He wants to play dirty. We can play dirty too. That evening, while the children played in their blanket fort from the power outage night, Alex and Zoe sat at the kitchen table with Zoe's laptop and a stack of printed emails. They were building their defense, documenting every interaction with Mitchell and constructing a timeline that showed his escalating threats and manipulation. "Here," Zoe said, pointing to an email from 6 months earlier. "This is where he first started pressuring me to publish our results. Look at the language he uses: considerable commercial potential and significant financial opportunities." Alex read the email with growing disgust. He's been planning this for months. The man sees dollar signs instead of scientific ethics. "The worst part is that he's not wrong about the commercial potential," Zoe said. "Our treatment really could help thousands of couples struggling with infertility, but rushing it to market without proper trials could be dangerous." "Which is exactly why you're the ethical scientist and he's the opportunistic businessman," Alex said. "Zoe, any board of directors worth their positions will see the difference between your approach and his." "I hope so, but Alex, there's something else you need to know." "What?" Zoe hesitated, then pulled up another email on her laptop. "Mitchell sent this to me an hour before the board meeting. It's not just about the unauthorized treatment anymore." Alex read the email and felt his blood turn to ice. Mitchell was threatening to go public with the entire story: Alex's sterility, the experimental treatment, the circumstances of the children's conception. He was essentially threatening to destroy all of their privacy and turn their family into a media circus. "This is blackmail," Alex said flatly. "It gets worse," Zoe said, scrolling down to read the rest of the email. "He wants me to sign over the patent rights to the treatment in exchange for his silence. If I don't cooperate, he's threatening to leak the story to the tabloids and make our lives a nightmare." Alex stood up and began pacing the small kitchen. His family was being threatened by a man who saw them as nothing more than leverage in his business plans. The protective rage that filled Alex was unlike anything he had ever experienced. "He's not going to get away with this," Alex said. "Zoe, I promise you, Dr. James Mitchell is about to learn what happens when someone threatens my family." "What are you going to do?" Alex smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. "I'm going to remind him that he's not the only one who knows how to play hardball. And then I'm going to make sure he never threatens us again." The emergency board meeting at the Midwest Fertility Institute was scheduled for Thursday morning, giving Alex and Zoe 3 days to prepare their defense. Alex had spent those 3 days doing what he did best: gathering information, building alliances, and preparing for war. Dr. James Mitchell had made a crucial mistake in his campaign against Zoe. He had underestimated the resources and determination of the man he was trying to manipulate. Alex Sterling had not built a $1 billion empire by being passive when someone threatened what he cared about. "Are you ready for this?" Alex asked Zoe as they sat in his rental car outside the institute on Thursday morning. Zoe was wearing her best professional suit and carrying a leather portfolio filled with documentation supporting her position. She looked composed and confident, but Alex could see the tension in her shoulders. "As ready as I can be," she said. "I still can't believe you managed to get Dr. Harrison to fly in from Johns Hopkins just to support me." Alex smiled. "Dr. Harrison has been following your research for years. When I explained the situation to him and showed him your published work, he was eager to testify to your professional integrity. And Dr. Chen from Stanford, she's equally impressed with your contributions to reproductive medicine. Zoe, you have allies in the scientific community that you don't even know about. Your reputation speaks for itself." They walked into the institute together, Alex carrying his own briefcase filled with evidence that would expose Dr. Mitchell's true motivations. The boardroom was already crowded with institute administrators, department heads, and the external expert witnesses Alex had arranged to attend. Dr. Mitchell was seated at one end of the conference table, looking confident and self-satisfied. His expression shifted slightly when he saw Alex enter the room with Zoe, but he quickly recovered his composure. "Ladies and gentlemen," the institute director began, "we're here to review allegations of unauthorized experimental treatments conducted by Dr. Zoe Washington. Dr. Mitchell has raised concerns about proper protocols and patient safety." For the next hour, Mitchell presented his case against Zoe. He painted her as a reckless researcher who had risked patient safety by conducting unauthorized human trials of experimental treatments. He emphasized the potential liability to the institute and the violation of medical ethics. Dr. Washington's actions, while perhaps well-intentioned, represent a serious breach of our research protocols, Mitchell concluded. The institute cannot afford to be associated with this kind of unprofessional conduct. When it was Zoe's turn to respond, she stood with quiet dignity and presented her side of the story. She explained the emergency circumstances, the informed consent from the patient, and the careful documentation of results. She emphasized her commitment to ethical research and her refusal to rush treatments to market without proper trials. "I stand by every decision I made that night," Zoe said firmly. "I followed proper medical judgment in an emergency situation, and the outcome has provided valuable data for future research." Then Alex rose to address the board. "I'm Alex Sterling," he said, his voice carrying the authority that had commanded boardrooms around the world. "I'm the patient Dr. Washington treated that night, and I'm here to tell you exactly what happened." The room fell silent as Alex told his story, his infertility diagnosis, his desperation for children, his informed consent to try the experimental treatment. He spoke about the success of the treatment and the 3 children who were proof of Zoe's scientific breakthrough. "Dr. Washington didn't conduct unauthorized experiments," Alex said. "She responded to a medical emergency with innovative treatment that saved my family's future. But there's something else you need to know about why we're really here today." Alex opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of printed emails. "Dr. Mitchell has been threatening Dr. Washington for months, trying to force her to rush this treatment to market for commercial gain. When she refused to compromise patient safety for profit, he decided to destroy her career instead." The board members passed the emails around the table, their expressions growing increasingly disturbed as they read Mitchell's threats and demands. The evidence was damning. Mitchell had clearly stated his intention to use the board investigation as leverage to gain control of Zoe's research. "These emails show a pattern of harassment and professional intimidation," Alex continued. "Dr. Mitchell isn't concerned about patient safety or research ethics. He's concerned about losing potential profits from Dr. Washington's breakthrough." Dr. Harrison from Johns Hopkins stood up next. "I've reviewed Dr. Washington's research extensively," he said. "Her work represents some of the most promising advances in reproductive medicine I've seen in my 30-year career. Her commitment to ethical research and patient safety is exemplary." Dr. Chen from Stanford added her support, praising Zoe's scientific methodology and professional integrity. Other experts weighed in with similar endorsements, painting a picture of a brilliant researcher being persecuted by a colleague with questionable motives. Mitchell tried to defend himself, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. His own emails had provided a clear record of his threats and manipulation attempts. By the end of the meeting, it was obvious to everyone in the room who the real problem was. "The board will deliberate and announce our decision by the end of the day," the director said as the meeting concluded. Alex and Zoe walked out of the institute together, both emotionally drained from the confrontation. They sat in Alex's car in the parking lot, waiting for the adrenaline to wear off. "Do you think we won?" Zoe asked. "I think Mitchell destroyed himself," Alex replied. "No board of directors wants to be associated with the kind of behavior he demonstrated in those emails." "Thank you," Zoe said quietly, "for everything. For supporting me, for bringing in those expert witnesses, for fighting for us." "Zoe, you don't have to thank me for protecting my family." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing what had just happened. The board meeting had been a victory, but it had also forced them to publicly acknowledge their relationship and their commitment to each other and the children. "Alex," Zoe said eventually, "there's something I need to tell you." "What?" "I got a job offer yesterday. The University of California wants me to head their new reproductive medicine research program. It's an incredible opportunity, my own lab, unlimited research funding, a chance to continue developing our treatment properly." Alex felt his heart stop. "That's amazing, Zoe. You deserve that kind of recognition. The position is in San Francisco. We would have to move." The words hung in the air between them. Alex understood the implications immediately. Zoe was being offered the chance of a lifetime, but accepting it would mean taking the children away from him. "When do you have to decide?" Alex asked, his voice carefully controlled. "They want an answer by Monday. Alex, this is everything I've worked for my entire career. The chance to lead a major research program to develop treatments that could help thousands of families." "You should take it," Alex said, though the words felt like they were being torn from his chest. "It's an incredible opportunity." Zoe looked at him with surprise. "Just like that, you're willing to let us move 3,000 miles away?" Alex was quiet for a long moment, thinking about his children and the woman he loved. He thought about the empty penthouse in New York and the meaningless business deals that had consumed his life before he met them. "No," he said finally, "I'm not willing to let you move 3,000 miles away. But I'm not going to ask you to sacrifice your career for me either." "Then what are you suggesting?" Alex turned to face her fully. "I'm suggesting that maybe it's time for me to make some changes too. My business is mostly automated now. I can run it from anywhere with a good internet connection. What if we moved to San Francisco together?" Zoe stared at him. "You would relocate your entire life for us." "Zoe, you and the children are my entire life now. Everything else is just geography. But your family, your friends, your whole support system is in New York." "My family is sitting right here in this car," Alex said, "and my friends. Honestly, most of them are business associates anyway. I want to build a real life with real people who matter, not continue maintaining relationships that are based on money and convenience." "Alex, this is a huge decision. You shouldn't make it impulsively." "I'm not making it impulsively. I'm making it because I love you and I love our children, and I want us to build a future together wherever that future takes us." Zoe's eyes filled with tears. "You really mean that?" "I really mean that. Zoe, will you marry me?" The question surprised both of them. Alex had not planned to propose in a parking lot after a board meeting, but the words had come from somewhere deep in his heart. "What?" Zoe whispered. "Marry me," Alex repeated, his voice stronger now. "Not because of the children, not because it's convenient, but because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life building something beautiful with you." "Alex." "I know it's sudden, and I know we haven't been dating very long, but Zoe, what we have is real. The way you've let me into your life, the way we've become a family, it's not something I want to risk losing." Zoe was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Alex felt like his heart might explode with joy. He pulled Zoe into his arms and kissed her, right there in the parking lot of the Fertility Institute where their lives had become intertwined. "So we're really doing this?" Zoe asked when they broke apart. "Moving to California, getting married, building a life together." "We're really doing this," Alex confirmed. "Though I should probably warn you, I have no idea how to be a husband any more than I knew how to be a father. You're going to have to teach me." "I think we can figure it out together," Zoe said, smiling through her tears. That evening, they told the children about their engagement and the move to California. The triplets were too young to fully understand marriage, but they grasped the concept of Alex becoming a permanent part of their family. "Alex going to live with us?" Noah asked hopefully. "That's right, buddy," Alex said, "if that's okay with you." "Can you tell us stories every night?" Emma wanted to know. "Every single night," Alex promised. "And help with bath time," Lily added. "Especially bath time," Alex laughed. Later that evening, Alex's phone rang with a call from the institute director. The board had reached their decision. Zoe had been fully exonerated of all charges, Dr. Mitchell had been terminated for professional misconduct, and Zoe was welcome to return to her position with the Institute's full support. "Though I suspect she won't be staying with us much longer," the director said. "Word is already spreading about the University of California offer. They're lucky to get her." "Yes, they are," Alex agreed, watching Zoe help the children build a new blanket fort in the living room. After the children were in bed, Alex and Zoe sat together on the couch, planning their future. They would move to San Francisco in 2 months, giving Alex time to relocate his business operations and Zoe time to finish her current projects. They would look for a house with a big yard where the children could play and grow. "Are you sure about this?" Zoe asked as they looked at real estate listings on her laptop. "Giving up everything you've built in New York." Alex looked around the small apartment that had become his favorite place in the world. "I'm not giving up anything important," he said. "I'm gaining everything that matters." "What about your sister? She's still convinced I'm a gold digger trying to steal your fortune." Alex laughed. "Jennifer will come around once she meets the children. And if she doesn't, that's her loss." "And your parents?" "My parents want me to be happy. When they see how happy you and the children make me, they'll love you too." They stayed up late into the night, making plans and dreaming about their future together. Alex had never imagined that his life could change so completely in such a short time, but sitting there with Zoe in his arms, he knew he had finally found what he had been searching for his entire life. He had found his family, and nothing else mattered. 6 months later, Alex stood in the backyard of their new house in San Francisco, watching his children play on the swing set he had spent the previous weekend assembling. The house was everything they had dreamed of, spacious but warm, with a big kitchen for family dinners and a yard large enough for the children to run and explore. Emma was reading a book under the oak tree, occasionally looking up to check on her siblings. Noah was trying to teach Lily how to pump her legs on the swing, his patient coaching making Alex smile. At almost 2 years old, the children had grown and changed so much since that first meeting in Zoe's apartment. "They look happy," Zoe said, coming up behind Alex and wrapping her arms around his waist. "They look perfect," Alex replied, leaning back against her. "How was your first week at the new lab?" "Incredible. The research team is brilliant and the funding is everything I hoped for. We're already making progress on refining the treatment protocols." Zoe paused. "How was your week working from home?" "Productive, actually. I closed the Jensen deal from the kitchen table while Noah took his nap. Turns out, I don't need a 40-floor office building to run a business." Alex had been surprised by how easily he had adapted to working from home. He had sold his New York penthouse and downsized his business operations, focusing on the investments and projects that truly interested him. For the first time in his adult life, work felt like something he did to support his life rather than something that consumed his life. "Daddy, look," Lily called out, having successfully managed to swing by herself for the first time. "I see you, baby," Alex called back. "You're doing great." The word daddy still sent a thrill through Alex every time he heard it. The children had started calling him that naturally about a month after they moved to California, and it remained the sweetest sound he had ever heard. "Alex," Zoe said softly, "your parents called while you were outside. They're confirming their flight details for next week." Alex smiled. His parents had visited twice since the move, and each time they had fallen more in love with their grandchildren. His mother had immediately started spoiling them with toys and books, while his father had spent hours teaching Noah how to throw a baseball. Even Jennifer had come around after meeting the children, admitting that she had been wrong about Zoe's motivations. "Are you nervous about having them here for the wedding?" Zoe asked. "Not nervous, excited." Alex turned in her arms to face her. "Are you nervous?" "A little. It's been just us for so long, and suddenly we're going to have a house full of family and friends celebrating with us." Their wedding was planned for the following weekend, a small ceremony in their backyard with close family and friends. They had decided to keep it simple and intimate, focusing on the commitment they were making rather than elaborate celebrations. "We can still elope if you want," Alex offered. "Just you, me, and the kids." "No," Zoe said, smiling. "I want to celebrate with everyone who's important to us. I want the children to see us make this commitment, to understand that we're choosing to be a family. We're already a family, Alex pointed out. I know. But this makes it official. As if summoned by their conversation about family, all three children abandoned their activities and ran over to join their parents. Emma climbed onto Alex's lap while Noah and Lily flanked Zoe, creating their familiar cluster of togetherness. Are we having dinner soon? Noah asked hopefully. My tummy is making noise. In a few minutes, Zoe promised. Why don't you go wash your hands? The children ran toward the house, their voices carrying across the yard as they debated what they wanted for dinner. Alex and Zoe followed more slowly, hands linked, savoring the peaceful end to another day in their new life. Dinner was the usual cheerful chaos. Noah regaled them with stories from his new preschool, Emma shared interesting facts she had learned from her picture books, and Lily performed an elaborate dance that involved spinning until she got dizzy. Alex found himself laughing more during family dinners than he had in his entire previous adult life. Daddy, Emma said as they cleared the dinner dishes, will you still tell us stories after you and Mama get married? Of course, sweetheart. Getting married doesn't change anything about how much I love you. Will we still live in this house? Noah wanted to know. This is our home, Zoe assured him. We're not going anywhere. Will there be cake at the wedding? Lily asked, cutting straight to what mattered most to her. Lots of cake, Alex promised, making her clap with delight. That evening, after the children were in bed, Alex and Zoe sat on their back porch with glasses of wine, watching the sunset over their neighborhood. The house next door had children too, and they could hear the sounds of other families settling in for the night. Do you ever miss your old life? Zoe asked quietly. Alex thought about his penthouse in New York, the business dinners and networking events, the empty success that had once defined him. Never, he said honestly. Do you miss being single, having complete control over your decisions? Not for a second, Zoe replied. Though I have to admit, I never imagined that sharing my life with someone could feel so natural. We're good at this, Alex observed. Being a family, I mean. We are, the children are thriving, your business is doing well, my research is advancing, everything just fits. Alex pulled Zoe closer on the porch swing. I love you, he said simply. I love you too. All of you, you and this life we've built, and the future we're creating. Speaking of the future, Alex said, I have something for you. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and handed it to Zoe. I know we already picked out your wedding ring, but I wanted to give you something else. Zoe opened the box to find a delicate necklace with a pendant shaped like a tree. The trunk was made of gold and the branches held 4 small diamonds, one for each member of their family. Alex, it's beautiful, Zoe breathed. I had it made special, see how the branches all connect. That's us individual but part of the same tree, growing together. Zoe's eyes filled with tears as Alex fastened the necklace around her neck. I can't believe how lucky we are, she whispered. Lucky? Alex asked. That night 3 years ago could have been just a one-night stand that we both forgot about. The experimental treatment could have failed. Dr. Mitchell could have succeeded in destroying my career. You could have decided that instant fatherhood was too complicated and walked away. Alex shook his head. I could never have walked away from you and the children. From the moment I saw those photos, my heart knew they were mine. And from the moment I met you again, I knew you were the woman I wanted to build a life with. Even though I came with a lot of complications. Especially because of the complications. Zoe, easy doesn't build character or create meaningful relationships. The fact that we had to fight for this family makes it more precious, not less. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Tomorrow would bring another day of work and children and the beautiful routine of their shared life. Next week would bring their wedding and the official recognition of what they had already built together. Alex, Zoe said eventually, do you think we should have more children someday? The question surprised Alex, but as he thought about it, he realized the idea didn't scare him the way it might have a year ago. Do you want more children? Maybe, not right away. I want to enjoy being married for a while and the triplets are still so young. But someday maybe. Would we need the experimental treatment again? Probably. Your sterility is permanent, so natural conception is unlikely. But the treatment protocol is much safer now. We've refined it significantly based on additional research. Alex thought about the possibility of expanding their family, of giving Emma, Noah, and Lily siblings to love and protect. If you want more children someday, then I want them too. This family has been the greatest gift of my life. Even though it means more chaos, more sleepless nights, more toys all over the house. Especially because of all that, Alex said, pulling Zoe closer. The chaos means life is being lived, love is being shared, memories are being made. I'll take our beautiful chaos over sterile perfection any day. A sound from inside the house interrupted their conversation, one of the children calling out from their bedroom. Alex and Zoe looked at each other and smiled, recognizing the signal that parenting duties were calling. Your turn or mine? Zoe asked. Mine, Alex said, getting up from the swing. I'll be right back. He found Noah standing in his bedroom doorway looking small and sleepy in his dinosaur pajamas. What's wrong, buddy? Alex asked, kneeling down to Noah's level. I had a scary dream, Noah said, rubbing his eyes. Want to tell me about it? There were monsters, and they were trying to take our family away. Alex's heart clenched at his son's fear. Hey, look at me, he said gently. No monsters are ever going to take our family away. Mama and I will always protect you and Emma and Lily, okay? Promise. I promise, and you know what else? What? Our family is so strong and so full of love that no monsters would ever want to mess with us. We have too much happiness for them to handle. Noah giggled at this explanation. They'd run away from all our hugs. Definitely, our hugs are monster-proof. Alex tucked Noah back into bed and sang him the song about twinkling stars that had become their nightly ritual. By the time he finished, Noah was fast asleep, secure in the knowledge that his family was safe and permanent. When Alex returned to the porch, Zoe was still sitting on the swing, her hand unconsciously touching the necklace he had given her. Everything okay? She asked. Bad dream about monsters trying to take the family away, Alex reported. I assured him that our love is monster-proof. Good answer, Zoe said, making room for him on the swing again. Is it also divorce-proof, scandal-proof, whatever life throws at us proof? Alex wrapped his arms around his future wife and looked out at the home they had built together. Through the windows, he could see the evidence of their shared life toys scattered across the living room, family photos on the mantel, the children's artwork stuck to the refrigerator with magnets. It's everything proof, he said with complete certainty. Zoe, we've already survived everything that should have broken us apart, your career being threatened, my family's skepticism, the complications of blending our lives together. We're stronger now than when we started. How do you know? Because we chose each other, Alex said simply. Not because it was easy or convenient, but because what we have is rare and precious and worth fighting for. That kind of love doesn't break easily. I love you, Alex Sterling, Zoe said, settling against his chest. I love you too, future Mrs. Sterling, Alex replied. They sat together on their porch swing, planning their wedding and their future, surrounded by the sounds of their neighborhood settling in for the night. Inside their house, 3 beautiful children slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they were loved and protected and part of something special. A year ago, Alex had been a broken man, mourning his inability to father children. Zoe had been a single mother struggling to raise triplets alone while building her career. Neither of them had imagined that an anonymous package and a reunion years in the making would lead to this. A love story that defied logic and created the perfect family neither of them had dared to dream possible. But sometimes the best stories are the ones that start with impossible circumstances and end with ordinary miracles like children's laughter in the backyard, family dinners around a kitchen table, and 2 people who found each other exactly when they needed each other most. As Alex and Zoe headed inside to prepare for another day of their beautiful, chaotic, perfect life together, they knew that their fairy tale was just beginning. They had love, they had family, and they had forever to discover just how wonderful their story could become.